Hello everybody. In this video I'm going to explain some of the hidden mechanics in South Park The Fractured Butthole. There have been some misconceptions and rumors going around about how the game works, so with this video I hope you'll all understand how the game actually works. So the mechanics that I will explain are initiative, action points, post-action movement points, difficulty, and I will also explain how the danger deck difficulty works. So let's get into it. So the first stat I will explain is initiative. And what this stat does is it determines the turn order for a character in a battle. Having a lower initiative means that your turn will come earlier than a character with a higher initiative. I have heard some people say that the turn order is determined by your movement, but this is not true. For example, a new kid with 3 movement can start later than a new kid with 2 movement. One thing to note is that if the new kid gets combat advantage, he will always get the first turn, which bypasses initiative. Now I'm going to show you the initiative stat for all of the player characters, and there are some things to note about them. First is that the new kid's initiative is calculated based on your equipped artifacts. Keep in mind that your DNA is also an artifact. Second is that Backstory doesn't copy over the initiative of the new kid and also doesn't have an initiative calculation. But this doesn't matter because he is summoned, so you choose when he gets his turn. Third is that the Chaos Mexican summoned by Professor Chaos has an initiative of 10,000, but this also doesn't matter because he's summoned by Butters, so his turn is always after his. Now I'm going to show you the initiative for some of the enemies in the game, and there are also a few things to note here. First is that a lot of boss characters have 1 initiative, and this is so that they will always start first. Second is that both Santas in the game use the same stats, so they have the same initiative. The third thing is that Freeman will always start first, even though you punch him to start the battle. And the last thing is that Michael Jackson has a priority of 10,000, which is just the default stat, so the developers never gave him a unique one. And that's all for initiative. The next stat that I will go over is action points, and what this stat does is it determines how many actions a character can take per turn. And one thing to note with this stat is that it was originally going to be visible in the game, but this was removed. So the way this stat works is that every character has a total AP, usually 1, and every power has an AP cost, also usually 1. And what this means is that most characters can take 1 action per turn, but you might have sometimes noticed that a character has 2 actions per turn, like Kun and Mitch. And the way this works is that they have usually 2 AP and their powers cost 1 AP. But keep in mind it's also possible for a power to cost 0 AP, and what this means is that a character with 1 AP can use that power and then take a second action. The Speedster double edge power increases the new kid's AP, and that allows for multiple actions per turn. And the last thing about this stat is that if the AP cost of a power is more than a character has, then the power can't be selected. And that's all for action points. The next stat that I'm going to explain is post-action movement points, and this stat is very self-explanatory. Basically, it's how much you can move after you have used a power and have another action. And this stat is set to 0 by default for most characters. For the player characters, this stat is always set to be the same as your regular movement points. So a new kit using Overclocked with 3 movement will have 3 post-action movement. and that's all there is to it. The last thing I will talk about is the difficulty and the danger deck difficulty. The game is a bit vague about how the difficulty works, and some people might not know what it exactly does. But if you pay attention, you can notice what it does. But before I explain how it works, I do want to make one thing clear about the difficulty in this game, and that is the new kit's skin color. The skin tone you choose for the new kit does not affect the difficulty. There are some people that still believe this, but it does not. It does change some things in the game, but it doesn't make combat harder. Now that that's done, I will show you how the difficulty in this game actually works. As you can see, the difficulty in this game is very simple. It just changes how much damage you do and how much damage the enemies do. Do note that the difficulty doesn't change the damage done by knockback and status effects. Those stay the same on all difficulties. Another thing to note is that the in-game description for heroic mode says that heroes and enemies are evenly matched, but as you can see, this is not true. Enemies do 20% less damage on heroic. Also, two things to note with Diabolic. The first is that it was added with the Danger Deck update, and also it does not count for the token experience achievement. Last thing to note is the Danger Deck difficulty. In game it says the difficulty is set to Mastermind, which is sort of true. The player's damage is reduced by 25%, but the enemy's health and damage is based on your might. The Ultra challenges have set multipliers for enemies. That was all for this video. Thank you all for watching, and peace.